Alrighty. So I decided to do the set design. To start off with, there wasn't a lot of detail in the script as to what the house looked like. So, in the sense of you know, um, I guess extreme detail is a good way to say it. So I had to use a little bit of my imagination and some things that I've personally seen. Um, the house is pretty old. I would imagine it would be pretty old. And with it being right next to, or on Cape Cod, right next to the ocean, I would imagine it's probably a little worn down, in the sense because it's probably always being battered by windstorms and rain and maybe, um, well, I guess not a hurricane if it's still there. Um, the kind of style of the house and things that they did that would reflect the set design would be the father being an author. I would imagine that there's a lot of books just scattered about. There's probably a lot of bookshelves. Oh, hold on. How do I? There. You go. Bookshelves with obviously books on them. Um, and the director's concept, I believe, it says that it a little claustrophobic, so something along those lines. And so I figured a good way to get a claustrophobic look to it, but still homey and not overwhelming, would be having bookshelves, once again, obviously with books on them, but even with just some random just stuff on it, like photos or little statues of things. Um, I feel like that'd be a really good way to get that claustrophobic feel because it'd be kind of cluttered. Um, I decided to do these, um, and yeah. So with it being an author, obviously, how he makes his money. So there's probably going to be a lot of maybe manuscripts, books, magazines, a bunch of literature, essentially. Um, and I would imagine that could be also it's probably also one of his hobbies. So it's a very a very large theme of the house would be literature. Um, um, with it being Cape Cod, um, if his house is, there might be, I think it would be a mixture of kind of older looking homes like these two here. Hopefully you can see the red laser pointer. Um, maybe, but there would probably also be some modern homes. Um, and so I think it would be a mixture. You would probably see a lot of fancy cars, especially if it's in a wealthy area of Cape Cod. Um, I don't think they were like mega rich, but I do think they were wealthy. Obviously, not cheap to live in Cape Cod, especially when you're right on the ocean. Um, so pretty successful. Um, it doesn't really necessarily. They have it discusses this. I don't know. I don't know the word for it. This image they have to uphold, I guess. And so I'm gonna assume that he was really successful, or at least pretty successful. Has a nice house right on the ocean, and so yeah. Um, some other just random set design things I decided to do. You may have gathered from these photos, and I'll go into a little bit more. A lot of dark colored, like a bookshelves or dark colored. This table, kind of had this. This is a photo from the movie Knives Out. That kind of sprung out to me when I was uh, thinking about the set. Um, the grandfather. It's actually kind of similar. The grandfather passes. The owner of the house passes away. Owner of the house is an author. Family comes to help to mourn, and so it's kind of similar in ways. Obviously, a good stock doesn't have a murder or anything like that, but um, they have similar plot points, and so I figured this probably could be something that could be in it. I didn't necessarily do a lot with I didn't heavily rely on this image, but I took a little bit of inspiration from it. Um, but with all the dark colored stuff, I thought maybe with the living rooms, in the living room and kitchen is where a large part of the show takes place, or the play takes place. Um, so I thought maybe a blue couch would be nice. Um, and so to kind of just some randomly colorful things. I'll get into that more a little bit later. Um, One thing I thought would be cool is these having incorporating valuses in the like if you have a window on a like you have a wall and you have a window on it. Um, I don't see these on modern homes, especially so if I with my design I kind of kept it to the older kind of feel to it, and I don't really see people putting valuses on their windows anymore, but I do see them on older homes. So I think valuses would be a nice simple touch to add. Um, he may even also have some, and for just terms of props, maybe, or just things kind of scattered on tables, books, stacks of papers, maybe an award for writing, or multiple. Um, if for any outside scenes, have a deck with some chairs out looking at the ocean. Um, I don't think it'd be wise to have the actors like turn their back and like look at like a cyc or anything in the background. We have a projection of the ocean, so maybe you could have them facing out into the audience and then project like some blue light onto them and have some ocean like the waves crashing into the shore sound effects. Here's my color scheme. Like I said, dark wood, a lot of wood, so a lot of browns, maybe a little bit of blacks. Um, he wanted natural light. I thought natural light would probably look good for some scenes. So kind of this like ambiance, this as the sun's rising or setting. I think that would look really nice. Have it kind of look like it's peering through the windows. Excuse me. Any of the scenes that take place when they're out looking over the water, like I said, some ocean colors, maybe a little bit of blue. But for the most part, I feel some just normal house light, just like an overhead light kind of thing. Um, Once again, nothing too fancy. Here's my rendering. I do apologize. I am not a great artist. This is probably the reason why they only had me build the sets and never design them. Um, I did, but here's my. Since a large part of the show takes place in the living room and kitchen, I would thought that maybe having a set that the audience could see both. You don't have to do any major set changes for that. I remember when I did Beauty and the Beast, we had to pull and push the castle. Like we would pull it back, and the curtains would close behind in front of it, and then we'd have to open them and push it back out. And that was really a pain because we had to do that multiple times. So I figured maybe for simplicity's sake, but also just to, I think it would look nice, especially if there's any scenes where there are people in both of these, and maybe they're discussing um, or talking about something. Um, so this black line here um, has is like means like a elevation, like the living room floor is a few inches lower than the kitchen or the kitchen floor. So there's like this clear separation from the living room and kitchen, but without there being like an actual wall there. Um, so here, my photo didn't really work it well, but these are two are bookshelves right here. You could incorporate some more bookshelves. I didn't think you probably want to put in anything here and obviously here because you don't want to obstruct the audience's view. Here's that blue couch from earlier, a coffee table. This is a chair. Looks a little better right here. This is from the audience's view. Um, Wants to bring a little bit more color in, uh, maybe some colorful books behind him in the background, so it doesn't just look like a bunch of brown or your darker colored things. For the kitchen, I thought maybe some nice like a bit of like an open kitchen kind of concept, I guess, with an island in the middle. So actors can like their blocking can be like talking here, and have something they're doing something here. Um, yeah. Oh, and then down here, I incorporated, or I added, not incorporated, set pieces and props, and I've said where they should go. Books and rewards obviously go on the bookshelves. Stack of used paper in like a mug, be on the coffee table in case they were just sitting here reading something. For the kitchen, microwave, coffee maker, refrigerator. Um, the show does take, or in the director's concept, it says it takes place in 2025. Um, and so, with it being an older house, I don't think that necessarily means that it doesn't have anything modern in it. So it could have like a modern refrigerator. It could have or like at least like a mock-up of one. Obviously, you don't want to put a real refrigerator there unless you wanted to, I guess. Um, but like a modern microwave, have like a little bit of a touch of something modern, like maybe a TV if you wanted it, or the actors, well, maybe like a similar like a landline. My grandparents had landlines, and although they're not super new, they are relatively new, kind of. They're pretty old, but anyways, um, so yeah, have like a mixture of old but new. Um, like I said, wealthy. Set that. The weather, Cape Cod, so probably pretty nice weather throughout most of the year. With it like the occasional like rainstorm and wind. My house actually is really close to Lake Texoma, and the side of my house that looks, or it's like in the direction that points in the direction of Texoma, is it's a bit more beat up than the side that's facing away from it. Um, because of all the wind and stuff. And so that was probably what and the weather could have an effect on the house. Um, Hobbies today. All right, I think that's all of it. Oh yeah, right. This photo kind of. Can I zoom in? No. Well, this photo here, kind of talks what I'm talking about. Like shows what I'm talking about. The living room, and then you can clearly see the kitchen in the background. Um, but yeah, and then for those scenes, if you have nothing going on in the kitchen, but and everyone's in the living room, you can dim the lights of the kitchen, or vice versa. Um, or if there's something going on in the kitchen and in the living room, you can have lights on both. So yeah, thank you.